All right, check this out. Okay, so on the weekend, I downloaded this app. It's called Mealiveries, and you can get meals delivered to you. And by the way, just stick with me, and then we'll jump into this video. This is really, really cool. So I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna log in with my details, right, with the account that I created. Give me 1 second. Put in my password. All right, so once you're in, you can actually go ahead with this app, and you can go and scan a QR code to order. I'm kidding, guys. This is not an app. This is just a prototype. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can create high quality, advanced interactive prototypes just like this one with ease and without breaking a sweat. What is up, beautiful people? It's your boy Mizgo here. Now, in this video, I want to share with you guys how to create highly advanced and interactive prototypes with ProtoPie. Now, ProtoPie allows you to create highly interactive, high quality, realistic, no-code prototypes that actually operate and feel like the actual product. So it's perfect for user testing and allowing your stakeholders to actually try and feel the app before you actually have to go and build it. Now, as you probably know, I rarely do sponsorships on this channel because I only want to be promoting and partnering with products that I personally use or truly support. And thanks to ProtoPie for sponsoring this video. Let's jump right into it, guys. Now, the first thing is I want to share with you guys the website. Now, if you haven't heard about ProtoPie, you can head over to protopie.io, and as you can see, it's prototyping for everyone. It allows you to create interactive, realistic, and no-code prototypes that work like the actual digital product. And this is what I love about it, right? So they have a cloud platform, they also have a native app, and they also allow you to connect your phone to the prototype so you can emulate it just like this. So we're gonna jump right into Figma, and I'm gonna walk you through step by step on how to recreate that app. So I'm gonna head over to Figma, and the first thing you need to do is make sure you download the Figma or Adobe XD or Sketch plugin for ProtoPie. Open up the plugin, select the screens, and hit export. Now, once you've actually downloaded the native app, it will automatically open up, and you will eventually see that the screens will upload and populate over here on the left-hand side. Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and just hit preview and just open up one of the windows, the preview window. I'm gonna move it over to the right-hand side so you can follow along as we go through this tutorial. And just to let you know that this tutorial, it will be a little bit longer, so take your time with it. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Now, in the top left corner, we have some of our primary actions. As you can see, you can import designs from Figma, Adobe XD, and Sketch. You also have different media assets, images, video, camera, Lottie, and we'll be covering a few of these in this tutorial. We've also got all the shapes. We've also got some text, including a customized interactive text input that we'll be utilizing in this tutorial. And then we've got a number of different containers that we'll also be using. Underneath, we have the scenes, and these are really the different frames of the prototype. This little cute little icon over here allows you to access all your local components and also public libraries, which you can pull assets from, potentially like an iOS UI kit, into your prototype as well. So it saves you quite a bit of time with this library. Underneath, you've got your standard layers, just like every other UI design tool. And then over in the top, in the header over here, you can see that you can customize and change the device. It will automatically detect that this is an iPhone frame. You can change to Android, desktop, and custom. So you can see that with ProtoPie, you can really create prototypes, not just for mobile apps, but websites, web apps, IoT, whatever device, they've probably got it covered as well. Then on the top right corner, you've got some of your secondary actions. So including being able to preview your prototype, you can connect your actual phone as well by connecting your device. You can simply run, and you can also upload your prototype to the cloud platform where you can share it with stakeholders, do user testing, and also get feedback from your team. We'll be covering that at the end of this video. Then right here, you can see the add trigger. And this is probably the biggest difference between this piece of software with any other UI design tools. When you are prototyping, the concept is that you always need to define a trigger, which is potentially maybe a tap of the phone, and then you have a response. So when you tap on the phone, something will happen. So this, if you click on add trigger, you'll see that you have a vast amount of different triggers that you can utilize within your prototype, including tapping, touching, flinging, pulling, dragging, pinching, whatever you want with your phone, you can set that as a trigger. You've also got some conditional, some mouse interactions, some keyboard interactions, some input interactions, and also some sensory interactions, including potentially even tilting your phone. You can create some animations if you tilt your phone, and you can feel free to play around with these when you give ProtoPie a try. Then on the right hand side, you have a bit of a design panel. So if I go ahead and click on any element on the canvas, you can see you have access to a lot of the very familiar characteristics, properties for these elements that you can sort of tailor to what you desire. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into this tutorial. And once again, it's going to be a little bit of a longer one because I wanna make sure I cover a lot of the details in this tutorial. So pull up your sleeves and let's get ready, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and just reorder these screens and just make sure they're all in order. So we've got the splash screen that should appear for maybe like 2 seconds and then fades out. Then we have a welcome screen to log in. Then we have a login state. We then also have the home screen. So after you log in, you should slide down, show the home. We should be able to sort of scroll inside this canvas and maybe do some horizontal scrolling for this side as well. Then you also have a store screen, and then you also have the QR code screen, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start to ramp up this tutorial. Now, the key thing when you are doing prototypes is that, once again, you always have to have a trigger, and you always have to have a response. But you also always need to have a starting state and then an end state, right? So when someone first opens up this screen, what does it look like? And then what does it transition into, right? So this is actually the final state. We need to go ahead and set the default state. When someone first opens up this app, we want this logo to be positioned 40 pixels from the top. So we push it down, and we also want to set the opacity to 0%. This is the default state, right? So you don't adjust it in the trigger, you set it on the default level. And then we then go ahead and add a trigger, and we don't want to initiate the animation or the transition on an interaction. We want to set it on a condition. So when the app starts up, right? So you've got the start. When the app starts up, you want to add an action by clicking the plus, and we actually want to move, right? And we're going to select the layer. We're going to move the logo. So I'm going to select the logo layer. We're going to move to, this is the original position, 432. Previously, we added 40 pixels. Now we're going to remove 40 pixels, and it's going to go back to where it started, as you can see. Or as you can't see because it's still invisible. But you'll be able to see once we animate the opacity as well. And then we're going to go and do some ease out, and we'll also make the duration 0.4 seconds, okay? And then we're going to add another action, and we're going to adjust the opacity. So remember, we're gonna move the logo up by 40 pixels, and then we're gonna also fade it in. So we're gonna change the opacity to 100. We're also gonna change the easing to ease out, and we're gonna change the duration to 0.4. So as you can see on the right-hand side, if I hit play, you can see that the animation is happening. Now we also wanna make sure that there's a bit of a delay, so it doesn't suddenly appear. When the user opens up the screen, by clicking on this action and holding down shift, I can select them both, and holding down shift again and hitting right on my keyboard, I can move it over by 0.1 of a second each time. So we might move it up to 0.4, and as you can see, if I hit run, nothing happens, and then it gracefully transitions in. So that's what we want to do. And then after this animation has been complete, what happens next? Well, we want to be able to jump from this screen to the next one. So under the plus icon, you can select jump, and then you can select the scene, which will be number 2, onboarding, which is the next screen. And we can set the transition to fade. And what we have to do is we have to select the actual action and drag it all the way to the end of when the transition completes, the animation. So as you can see, if I hit run, fades in, and it fades out. So now we're on the second screen. Now, if you remember, with this screen, we actually had the image fading in with a bit of a mask that sort of opens up and reveals the image. And then we had all this text and these buttons sort of stagger their transition in. So the title comes in, then the subtext, then the button, and then the secondary button. So to recreate that effect, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna hit O on our keyboard, or you can go to shape and select oval. And you just want to draw down a circle anywhere on the canvas. Now, I want to go ahead and make the size of the circle 0 and 0 height, because the starting state of the screen is that nothing is visible, right? And we want the mask to be literally 0 by 0, and then over time, it will expand and reveal the image. So once that's to 0, 0, I'm also going to set the origin to the center point. So when the size of the scale of the circle extends, it grows from the middle. It doesn't grow from the edges. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the fill to white, so the gray will not appear outside of this image. And once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and select the oval. I'm going to move it underneath the delivery image. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to hit use as mask. As you can see, the image disappears. Why? Because the size is set to 0. If I make this 100, you'll be able to see that it will show 100 by 100 of that image. So I'm going to set that back to 0 and back to 0. And I'm going to highlight and select both these images by holding down Shift and selecting them both. And I'm just going to make sure that they're aligned vertically in the center and horizontally in the center. All right, perfect. So from here, that's complete. Oh, and by the way, just one last thing is that we also want to make sure that the image doesn't stay static when the image is revealed. We want a slight animation come in. So the position is at 126 on the y-axis, meaning that it's 126 from the top, as you can see here. We're going to go ahead and add 40 pixels to the default state, right? Why? Because when this animation happens, we want to animate this image up by 40 pixels, okay? So now that's complete, I'm going to hold down Command, I'm going to select the title, directly select the title, and I'm going to go ahead and plus 40 pixels to the top, and I'm also going to reduce the opacity. I'm going to do that the same with the subtext, so holding down Command, select the subtext, I'm going to go ahead and plus 40 to wherever it is positioned right now, so it should be 80, and then I'm going to reduce the opacity as well. Oh, oops, by the way, I just selected the wrong one. Support text, I'll plus 40 to the support text and then reduce the opacity. There we go. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do that for the buttons as well. So create account, I'm gonna go ahead and plus 40, reduce the opacity, and then log in as well, plus 40, and reduce the opacity. And you can obviously eyeball this if you wanted to, but I like to use defined measurements because it's a lot more scalable and I can predict things a lot more systematically. So now that everything is complete, right? We've set the default state. When someone first lands on the screen, everything is invisible. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit add trigger. And when the page starts, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move, right, the actual image by 166 minus 40, because we plus 40 before. I'm gonna revert it back to the original state. And then I'm gonna change the easing to ease out, duration to 0.4. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the opacity, and then I'm gonna make sure the image is selected, and then I'm gonna make the opacity 100, ease out to 0.4 as well, and that should be good. And then the second thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the oval also extends itself, so it reveals the image. So then I'm gonna hit the plus, I'm gonna hit scale, and I'm actually gonna make sure the oval is selected, and we're gonna do size to 400 by 400, as you can see right there. I'm gonna change the easing to ease out, and the duration can be 0.4 as well, as you can see. So now you can see that the image slides in, and then it reveals with the mask, right? So there we go. Now, the second thing we need to do is now animate those, the text and also the buttons. So under the plus, I'm gonna go and select move. I'm gonna go ahead and select the actual title itself. So the title would be header, and I'm gonna move it to 40 minus 40, because we added 40 to every single thing, right? So I'm gonna move that, make ease out, and it's gonna be 0.4. And then I'm also gonna change the opacity for the header to 100 with ease out and with the duration of 0.4, as you can see right there. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that this happens after, maybe 0.1 of a second after this, so it staggers gracefully. And we might even do 0.2, as you can see right there, looking good. And now, because these animations are going to be repeated for all these elements, instead of having to manually do it one after the other, I can go ahead and right click, I can duplicate, and then I can just change the header to support text, and then I can simply move it over by holding down Shift and right on the actual keyboard. and then we can just double check that everything is correct. The move state needs to be at 40, right? And there we go. So now what we can do is highlight again, duplicate these actions, and then we can simply move it over by 1, and we can change the support text to the create button create button. And we just need to make sure that the move endpoint is at the same to where it started. So it should be 0. There we go. Once again, we can duplicate this, move it over, and then we can change the selection to login, and we can change the endpoint for the move to, I believe it should be 40. Whoops, maybe not. Let me just double check where we started. Let me just see the starting point for these buttons should be 96 minus 40. So there we go. So let me just quickly fix that up. 96 minus 40 is 56. There we go. Perfect. All right, so let's start from the start. So we have, there we go. Image loads right in. So let's even start from the splash screen. Load. There we go. So obviously it's a little bit fast. We could reduce it to 0.6, but ultimately what I'm trying to teach you is trying to teach you how to navigate this product, and you can obviously tinker the easing to your will. All right, so the third section that we want to go and animate is actually this interaction. Now, obviously from here, we could, right? We could say if we tap login, so we could add a new trigger on the tap of the login button, right? So login button, we could jump over to the login state, and we could fade, and we could slide it in. As you can see, if I do this now, we can go login and we could slide it in, but we could actually slide it in from the bottom to the top, as you can see over here. But it doesn't provide that high quality interaction, because you can see that this is a static screen and everything came in one at the same time. We actually want to fade in the background and then slide in the modal, so it feels like they're on separate layers, and it creates that depth of field. So what we can do instead is we can go ahead and delete that, and we can actually go ahead and copy the modal and the actual overlay by Command C, and I can paste it over onto this prototype right here, and I can move it all the way to the top. All right, looking good. Now you can see that the reason why it looks a little bit broken is because this mask is now affecting everything above it. So instead, I can go ahead and highlight the image and hit Command G, and that will group it, and it will also not affect everything above. And from there, I can go ahead and just rename this to image, for example. So from here, what we can do is, once again, we need to set the default state for the screen. So we need to turn down the opacity of the overlay, and then for the modal, we actually want to position it off the screen. So remember, we have to define what the starting state is. Now, moving forward, when we add a trigger, we want to make sure that when someone taps on the login button, as you can see on the right-hand side, the modal slides up while the background fades in, the overlay. So on tap of the actual button, which is login inside the modal, we want to turn on the opacity, right? So selecting opacity, I'm going to select the overlay, and I'm going to change that to 100%. And then I'm going to change the easing to ease out, and we can maybe make this 0.4 of a second, as you can see here. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus, and then I'm going to move this modal, right? I'm going to select the modal. Where's the modal? And we're going to go 414. I believe it was 414. So if we go ahead and just change the easing to ease out and duration to 0.4, now when I hit the login, instead of it jumping to the next screen, it's actually going to, whoops, doesn't work. Let me just quickly see what's going on here. Whoops, so let me just make sure that we've selected the right login button. So we select the login button for the modal, that's incorrect. We need to select the login for the content, so the right one. So from here, if I hit login, you can see that the transition is much more graceful. It works a lot better than just jumping over to the next screen. So from here, let's just make sure that the opacity is maybe 90%. So we can go ahead and log in, and there we go. Much better. So now, if we want to make these inputs interactive, the great thing and the beautiful thing about ProtoPie is that if I scroll further down and I hold down Command and directly select the input, I can go and under text, add an input. So I can go ahead and simply, let me just draw this down, draw an input down right here, and I'm gonna put it on top. I can go ahead and just copy this, delete it, and I'm just gonna put it right inside this folder. So instead of having just a design, I can actually utilize a native interactive input to really emulate a real life experience. So once I've put an input down, I just go over to the right hand side and I can tinker some of the settings. So I can actually turn off the placeholder because I don't need the placeholder. I can add a border radius, so 4 pixels. I can also change the color, so I can reduce the light gray. And then I can actually go ahead and turn the text into different types of inputs. So for the password, I can actually change it for text password, as you can see. So from there, that's looking good. I can go ahead and copy this input. I can select the password one and hit paste, and then delete the previous one. Whoops, where did that go? Make sure we just move that down. Perfect. So from here, what we can do, let's just quickly preview this. Log in, looking good. If I hit email, whoops, you can see that the keypad now slides up and covers the actual modal. So what we need to do is have a guess. What do we need to do to fix this? All right, hopefully you've got some ideas. We need to go ahead and add a new trigger on a tap. When we tap, right, this email field, we need to move it up. So what we're gonna do is on tap, hit the plus icon, we are going to move the entire modal. So under move, I'm gonna select the entire modal, and we're gonna move it to, let's just say, I think it's 140 pixels. So ease out, change it ease out, 0.4 easing. If I hit login, right, email, whoops. So let me just make sure that the tap has been selected for the, let's see, modal and the actual form field. I believe it's form field 1. So if we go log in and we hit email 1, there we go, it slides perfectly up. So if we type in mizco@thedesignership.com and we put in a password, you can see that the password actually shows. So what we want to do is on the password field, we can go down to the design panel and we can change the actual type from text to text password. So from there, if we go again and go log in, type in an email @thedesignership.com and the password, it now shows as a real password field. So from here, if we now hit login, we want to slide the actual modal back down, fade out the background, and then jump over to the home screen. So from here, we're gonna go ahead and add a new trigger, and we're gonna hit tap, and under the select layer, we will select the login button, making sure we select the right one inside the modal, right? So login button, we will move the actual modal, so I'm gonna select modal, back down to, I believe it's 812. That's the original state. And we'll have to find out, 0.4 duration. And then we're also going to fade out the opacity. So by selecting opacity, I'm gonna select the overlay. I'm gonna reduce it to 0, change the easing to ease out and the duration to 0.4. And that's not it. We then need to make sure when all that happens, I know this is mind-blowing, but we need to jump over to the next screen. So by hitting plus, we have to go ahead and select jump. We select the scene of home, and we're gonna go ahead and slide. Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and just fade out to the home screen. So from here, we need to make sure that the jump is gonna be at the end of this transition. So let's cross our fingers and make sure this all works. So let's go ahead and hit login. I'm gonna type in our password, our email, and our password is password. I'm gonna hit login. There we go. So you can see that it all happens gracefully. Now, obviously you can tinker this, adjust the easing, you can stagger the animations. So maybe it fades out first, the overlay, and then the panel slides down. But really, ultimately, I'm trying to help you navigate and understand how to create an end-to-end sequence. So from here, we are now onto the third screen. And the goal here is to really allow us to scroll inside the content area. And then we want to be able to sort of flick through the different favorite picks, and also the stores. So this is actually very, very simple once you have designed it inside Figma. Go ahead into container, and the first thing we want to do is allow the user to scroll inside the content area. So by selecting scroll container, we can simply draw the area that we allow the user to scroll in. And then what we have to do is simply just move all the content inside that scrollable content container. So let's just say container, and we can say scrollable. And then you can see that the navigation got hidden because it's outside of the container. So we simply move the top navigation outside of the scrollable area. And as you can see here, we can now scroll. Now to make these be able to flick through and slide to the left and right horizontally, under container, we can go ahead and select paging container. And inside this scrollable area, we can go ahead and draw down the container for the scrollable carousel. And inside, let's just move this inside. I'm gonna go ahead and pick all the items inside the favorite picks, move it inside the container, and this might be favorite picks. And I'm just gonna delete the previous container. And you can see now, I can now flick through. Perfect. Now the second one is, I'm gonna go ahead and hit container, page a container, and I wanna make sure that we can flick through all these items down here. So I might just go ahead and rename this to stores around you. Might move that back inside the content area. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just move all 3 items inside the carousel, inside the stores around you folder, delete the carousel, and you can see now we can go ahead and scroll and navigate between these items. Perfect. Easy, right? How good is ProtoPie? So from here, the last thing we need to do, well, second last thing we need to do is select this item. I'm gonna go add trigger, and on the tap of this item, I'm gonna hit the plus. I'm gonna go ahead and jump from the current screen over to the actual store screen, and the transition will be slide in. So I want the screen to slide in from the right to the left. So if we go ahead and just preview this, that's exactly what I want. Now if I hit the back icon, I want this screen to navigate back out. So on the store screen, by selecting the store, I can hit add trigger, and I can hit on the tap. I want to make sure that on the tap, I'm going to go ahead and just select back. There we go. I want to make sure that we jump back over to the home screen, and the transition will be slide out from the left to the right. So if I hit the back icon now, left to the right, and we're back to where we were before. So now, we've pretty much covered the entire app, and the last thing that we need to do is actually create that QR code scanner. So over here, I have already designed and emulated the design for the QR code scanner. I'm gonna pop back into Figma, and I'm gonna show you how I've done that. So really, there is no little tricks over here. As you can see, this is just a rectangle with an opacity of 20%, with the square cut out from it, and then I've added in some of the text and some of these nice little details to try emulate the iOS camera. So once you've got that over inside ProtoPie, all you have to do is go ahead into media, grab the camera, and all you have to do is drag where you want the camera to appear, right here, and I'm gonna move the camera underneath everything. So now as you can see, since we've moved the camera under all the layers, on the right hand side, you can see the camera is actually sitting underneath the frame that we designed inside Figma. So from here, all we have to do is decide which camera view do we want to be using. So let's just say we'll use the front camera. Make sure you click on auto start, and from here, right? From here, if I go ahead and you download the ProtoPie app, click on scan QR code, click on device up in the top right corner, and I scan this QR code, this will actually open up the application from this prototype, and it will actually show me what I can see from a real phone right here. And damn, I look gorgeous. All right, so this is a really powerful tool, which I absolutely love because it really does emulate a real prototype. What does it actually feel like if I open up the camera and whatnot? So from here, I'm just gonna go ahead and just drop that down. I'm gonna go ahead and just turn off this. And that is ultimately how you can create an end-to-end prototype within ProtoPie. And obviously there are so many more advanced features. So once your prototype is complete and you want to do some user testing, or you want to send it to stakeholders, all you have to do is hit upload, right? But the first thing you need to do, you have to remember that you need to save this file to your desktop first. So I'm gonna hit save, and I'm just gonna save this to ProtoPie testing, and this will save the file. Now, the second thing you need to do is you'll need to go to the actual platform online. I'm gonna hit cloud. You need to log into your workspace. So I'm gonna go over to my workspace, and then I have to create a project. So from this interface, I'm going to create a private account, a private one, and I'm going to say designership project, and then I might hit create, and you can see that this file has been created, or this folder. Go back into ProtoPie, select designership team, and you'll see that the project will appear. Select that, and this will now publish my prototype over into the cloud platform, as you can see right now. Now, once that is all done, you can go ahead and copy this link and you can send it to your stakeholders, and you can actually take a look at the prototype and actually interact with it, get some feedback, and really test the actual emulation, the prototype itself. Now, if I head back over to the cloud platform and I go into this project and go into the actual prototype, it's the same link as to the one that just got generated, but from here, the workspace is very, very powerful. So from here, you can actually, on the left-hand side, you can go ahead and edit the details for this prototype. You can save it. And the second thing that you should take a look at is the interaction recipes. This is something that's very, very powerful, in my opinion, is that when you are, whether it's just design feedback that you need to provide developers, or it's a prototype, ProtoPie has allowed you to be able to record a specific section of the app or from the prototype, and you can, for example, let's say that's what the feedback we want to focus on, or we want to focus on feedback around the login modal. So if I hit login, I can then go ahead and hit stop, and this gets saved as a recipe inside the ProtoPie workspace. So if I hit back now, you can utilize this reference and send it directly to product managers or even developers and say, hey, reference this recipe on this link, and can you make sure to make the animations or transitions one-to-one with this, right? So instead of having to just leave notes on this device, you can really record it and get accurate feedback or directions for your developers. Then on the left, and then underneath, you've also got some version history, and ultimately you've also able to leave some comments as well. From the bottom section, you've got some really cool features such as restarting. You can also leave touch hints so you can see where you need to press, and you can also play back the prototype at multiple speeds. So hopefully you now understand the power of ProtoPie and how it differentiates itself from sort of like the native prototyping functionality in your everyday UI design tools. Now, if you are interested in ProtoPie, make sure to check the link in the description. I genuinely believe and really pioneer the team and everything that they're doing, because it is absolutely mind-blowing and it is such an underrated tool for designers to prototype in. Alright, if you want to check them out, make sure to check the link in the description. If you have any questions, make sure to also leave them down in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next video very soon. What the?